So this is a classic Provencal fish soup. I just wanted to show you all the ingredients that are going to go into this fish soup, but I don't want you to be put off by the number of ingredients because the process is really quite simple. Basically, it's fish, it's lots of vegetables which I'm going to fry in olive oil. You don't have to have all this variety of vegetables. I think as long as you've got onion and possibly celery and a red pepper and a bit of garlic. But I've got everything that I would normally put into a fish soup. First of all, let me talk about the fish. Now I'm going to make fish soup for about 4 to 6 people, and I've got about 500 grams of fish fillet. It's pretty random. I've got some cod, I've got some salmon, I've got some bass. Didn't really want to give this up to fish soup, but that's what I've got. I've got some tuna, which is a little bit past its best, and that's a good point about fish soup. You can use up stuff, not that's gone off, not that's smelly, but it's just a bit past its best. I've got another little bit of bass fillet there, and I've got some squid. Not the best squid in the world, it's supermarket stuff, been frozen, but it'll be fine in a fish soup. That's the point of the fish soup, is using up the bits. So there's my fish. First of all, I'm going to just sweat lots and lots of vegetables in olive oil in this pan. So just a bit of chopping to get them into sort of smallish pieces. Don't need to make them sort of minimally minute. Just chop them up so you can sweat them off. Really generous amount of olive oil here. Probably about 100 ml, maybe even a bit more. Get the temperature quite high. So we've got fennel, celery, leek, onion, red capsicums, red peppers, garlic, you name it, it's in there. Anything that you can associate with south of France really, or the Mediterranean. I just tend to vary whatever I put in there with what I've got in the fridge. But the one thing you do need to do now is take some time to cook these vegetables down. Well, I've been making this fish soup for about 45 years, and I do think that fish soup like this is a sort of measure of a good fish restaurant. But what we used to reckon was when you cook the vegetables down, it sort of almost adds a natural body to the soup. So one of the things you never do in a fish soup is add any sort of cereal like flour or polenta or rice, anything like that to thicken it. It's just thickened through all these lovely aromatic vegetables. But as you're cooking it down, you can do this at quite a high heat, as long as you're standing over. If you're not, keep the temperature low so nothing burns. So that's coming down very nicely now. Now I'm just going to throw in a couple of or 3 other ingredients. First of all, some bay leaves and a bit of thyme. And then I think this is really quite important. Some orange peel. I just like, when I'm eating a fish soup, just have a sort of slight aroma of orange in the soup. So about 3 or 4 pieces of orange peel like that. And then of course the juice as well. I won't put that in yet because I just only want dry ingredients. But the other thing I will put in now is just a really good pinch of saffron. Very important. Bit of thyme, forgot that, a bit more. And now that these vegetables are beginning to cook right down, I'm going to throw in the fish. So these I don't need to fillet, and also I don't need to skin them. The only thing I do take off the fish is bones, right? So I can put them in as they are. They'll break up as they cook. Just stir all that in. Now there's one ingredient that I completely forgot to mention, and it is sort of unique to the fish soup that I like to make, and you can leave it out if you like, but it's what we call shell-on prawns. These are quite cheap North Atlantic prawns, because what I call my fish soup is fish and shellfish soup, and you just find a few prawns like this which you can get in any supermarket. Just change the whole taste, and it just has this slight taste of sort of lobsters, prawns in the background. And stirry, stirry, stirry. Just let that all cook out for a little bit longer. This is going to be a very nice fish soup. It's beginning to break up the fish. And I do think it's a good idea to have a good variety of fish in there, but don't go from any other oily fish other than a bit of salmon and tuna, it's not a good idea to put mackerel, herrings, sardines, sprats, those sort of very oily fish in there. It does make it taste a bit oily. So that's looking quite nice now. Fish cooking quite well, picking up a bit of caramelisation, which is what I want. And now some other ingredients. First of all, the orange I was talking about. Oh, there goes a pip, doesn't matter. The juice of one orange. And next, most importantly, 1 can of tomatoes. You can use fresh tomatoes, but it won't make much difference in the final analysis. So in goes the can of tomatoes. Smelling really good at the moment, I must say. And now I've got about 1 litre of fish stock, quite intense fish stock. And I don't make this with the very finest of fish bones because it doesn't matter if it's a bit sort of rugged. So I've actually got some tuna bones in there, which is why the stock's a little bit on the dark side. So there we go. That's just about it. So now, this is going to take quite a long time to cook out. I would say you want to allow about 40 minutes. So let's go down to the bottom of the garden and look for fairies. Well, 40 minutes has gone by. My fish soup is ready for liquidizing. I've got one of these sort of jobs to do it in the pan. Before I do that, I'm going to make some croutons. What I like doing is frying the croutons, rubbing them with garlic, and then anointing them with rouille and floating them in the top of the fish soup. And then sprinkling parmesan over everything. So, here's my croutons. And again, I always fry croutons in olive oil, and the best olive oil just makes all the difference. I can start to turn them over now. They're doing well on the other side. Give them about another 30 seconds. Just wait for them to cool down a little bit. And I'm going to rub them with garlic. Just a little tip if you want to save yourself some labour. You don't need to peel the garlic. I learnt this from doing hundreds in the seafood restaurant kitchen. You can still rub them and it just rubs the skin off as well. And that's all you need. That's quite enough to give a really good strong flavour of garlic. So they're ready to go. Perfect. Now then, the soup. The all-important soup. Here we go. As you can see, there's lots of body in this soup. I might add just a bit of water because it's so thick and so it'll be so full of flavour. So I've just got everything in there that I'm just liquidising, including those prawns because the shells are so soft. That'll do for the time being. Now to pass the soup. Oh, that's a bit silly of me. I've just got sort of splashing all over me. I'm going to use a ladle. There we go. This is one way you have to pass the fish soup. The best thing, which I haven't at the moment got, is what the French call a moule légumes. That's one of those sort of sieves with a handle. But if you haven't got it, a conical strainer and a ladle will do. Except I'm going to have to change my shirt. The purpose of straining it is that there's just too much material in this. So you've got to really strain it to get a lot of it out of the soup. Otherwise it's like eating porridge, not like eating soup. But just by forcing as much of the pulp through with this ladle as I can, it normally makes the soup thick enough. Quite a sort of moot point with fish soup, how thick you like it. I actually like it a little bit on the thin side. Otherwise, as I said, I do find it a bit like seafood porridge, not like soup. So there we have it. That's the first pass. But now I'm going to go for the second pass. So basically, I'm just going to add water to this. You may feel you don't need to bother with this, but for me, it just makes absolutely sure I can get as much flavour out of all this really quite expensive material. As you can see, it's quite an labour-intensive pursuit, but it's the sort of thing I enjoy. Okay, that's got as much as I want out, and now I'll put it back on the heat for final seasoning. Right, now that'll take about 2 teaspoons of salt. That's perfect. And now a bit more chili, I think. This is cayenne pepper. It's the easiest way of adding chili to something. That's better. So just finally tasting that. That's lovely. And that's the sort of thickness I like. I would call it not too thick and not too thin. But if you like it a little bit thicker, you can always add a little bit of the pulp back in again, just to give it the soup a bit more texture. But that for me is perfection. So now to serve it up. That's a generous portion for one. And now for the all-important additions. So first of all, a nice big crouton for each one, rouille on top, float that in the soup, and finally plenty of grated parmesan or gruyere. There you go, that's my fish soup. Smells so good, so good. And to drink with that, I would say, of course, Provence rosé.